But you know something this Saturday morning? In this country, all it takes is a patch of land for power to test power. Now, I say that because a few days ago, Abuja witnessed one of those moments when the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike confronted a military officer guarding a disputed property. Now, the minister said the land belongs to the Federal Capital Territory Administration, and right he was, and he wanted access. The soldier, on the other part, was there on duty, protecting what his command had asked him to secure. What followed was a tense moment revealing an exchange between two arms of the same government. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the story, but highlight something very interesting. Now, here's the thing. Wike was within his rights. The minister is by law the custodian of all land matters in the FCT. His insistence on upholding the rule of law that no one, not even the uniformed, can occupy land without due process is commendable. It's how governance should work, whether you like it or not. But then there is another side to this story, which people have highlighted profusely through the week. The officer's restraint that day deserves equal recognition. Faced with verbal pressures and with cameras rolling, he stayed calm. No shouting, no grandstanding, just, steady composure. And a country where tempers often outrun judgment, that, my dear friends, was absolutely commendable. Discipline in action. But still, beneath the calm was something bigger. That's a question about how power is exercised in Nigeria. We saw two uniforms of authority, one political, the other one military. Both are powerful. Both were actually convinced that they were right. And when those lines blur, it's easy for respect of the law to look like defiance and for duty to look like insubordination. But this isn't just about one incident. It speaks to a deeper Nigerian tendency, the idea that might or proximity to it can sometimes replace procedure. It's a symptom of a system that still struggles to separate power from ego. And that's why that video absolutely trended. It trended because Nigerians weren't just watching a minister and a soldier. We were watching the external Nigerian argument. Who really calls the shots? Is it the man with the law, or is it the man with the gun? But in the end, it's not about who shouted louder. It's about how institutions behave when the heat comes on. And in this case, both men showed something worth noting. Wike's insistence on protecting public land and the officer's professionalism under pressure. Now, I'm going to say this, and carefully, but with determination. May this not repeat itself. Because next time, it might not end with words. It might set a precedence we don't want to see. Because when people begin to seemingly think that they know who's in authorities, ideas begin to form. Ladies and gentlemen, it's still Breakfast Extra, and don't you worry, we're going to lighten things up in just about a bit. My name is Mazino Appeal, and of course, today I am with Queen Celestine. Good morning, Queen. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Breakfast Extra, by the way. You have no idea how excited we are to have you back. We're keeping you for the next 8 weeks, by the way.
Mazino.
Huh? No? Not 8 weeks?
It's good to be back. I missed you guys.
Thank you very much.
Amazing monologue.
Thank you. We'll talk about it some more. In fact, we have an entire segment inside of the show with guests where we're going to address these very little nuances about that exchange. So, welcome once again. This is Breakfast Extra.
Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra on News Central. Here's what's going up today. We start in Kogi, where the Ibaji local government chairman has been suspended amid allegations of misconduct We'll explore the politics and implications. Then to Kano traders, where they're counting losses after a fire destroyed shops worth hundreds of millions of naira at the Singa Market. And in Abuja, a clash over a disputed land plot, just like Mazino stated in the monologue, between FCT Minister Wike and a serving naval officer that raises big questions about power, privilege, and the use of state instruments. And we also head to Edo State, where Benin indigenes are protesting the National Museum, demanding that their history be told accurately. And of course, on health is World Diabetic Day, and we'll look at lifestyle management in every stage of life. And finally, from South Africa, a key witness in the Senzo Meyiwa trial that has distanced himself, raising fresh questions about evidence and justice. And of course, stay with us. We'll break everything down, and of course, with expert insights and on-the-ground reports. But first of all, let's look at the dailies.
Before we look at the dailies, wanted to talk about the Benin instance and the museum.
Yeah.
You know, they actually protested the museum opening with the artifacts and everything. And I said something to, I can't remember who I was speaking with. I said, you can't do that. You can't just say, okay, fine, we are launching these artifacts, welcome back to Nigeria, and then boom, without actually interacting with the custodians of the culture.
Yeah.
And that was where they went wrong.
Well, this kind of reminded me of when I visited Robben Island in South Africa. And, you know, the intriguing thing was the tour guide who had to explain what the prison was like was a prisoner himself.
Oh.
And we asked, like, why. He said, because he didn't want a third party to come and twist their stories and not say exactly what happened. So he had to come back after serving, so I could imagine the touch of the mental state. But I get it in the context of, I want to be able to tell my story. So
Exactly.
I seem to want to understand where the indigenous will say, okay, this is our story. This is our artifacts. But let's see how it goes.
Interesting. That's such a very apt example, you know, of some other from another country. Welcome back. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Azina.
Now let's take a look at the daily, shall we? Let's start with the Tribune newspaper for this morning. Front and center. We'll have that up on your TV sets. There we go. Saturday Tribune has got this. All set for PDP National Convention. Oh, is it now? Are we done with the back and forth? Delegates arrive from 36 states. FCT, Abuja Court Axis Convention. Ibadan Court gives go-ahead. Security beefed up at venue. And genocide, the big word for the past couple of weeks. Plateau cleric tackles Sheikh Gumi, says we're ready to open graves for inspection. I'm tired of mass burials, threatens lawsuit. That on page 3. Southwest Muslims reject Trump's genocide claim. Now, these are Muslims rejecting the claim. And an NPA shifts focus to worry cocoa ports to ease Lagos congestion. Adeleke hosts Chinese investors, says Osun Free Trade Zone is open for business. I was in Osun a while back, only just last month, and wow, what a beautiful place, especially Osogbo. It is so beautiful.
I agree with you because I said that.
It is. Death rumors, former Governor Willie Obiano alive, healthy, says aid. That was a rumor from last night. And pre-election year, dollar spending exacerbates inflation, experts warn. That's everything on the... Oh, there is a little bit more at the top. Wike versus naval officer, FCTA clarifies status of land. We'll touch on that one. And Obiano, ex-Anambra governor, not dead, ex-commissioner tells. That's it for the Tribune newspaper this morning. Front page, what do you have, Queen?
I guess we'll do Saturday Independence. Yay. Why am I excited this morning? Oh, I missed breakfast extra.
You're welcome once again.
So on Saturday Independence front page, you have mass Senate defections, weakening role as watchdog. And then you have the picture of Senator Akpabio. And beneath it says counter-terrorism, former defense chief Irabo urges media to avoid sessionalized reporting. Media reports sharp public perception, he says. And beside it, it says genocide, Gumi's allegations sparks controversy as cleric claims Christians burial empty coffins to perpetrate narrative. And beside it, hold the leaders accountable over electoral promises, Obi tells editors. And below, how syndicates now use ride-hailing apps to rob. And right above that, William Benson says on page 9, 32 years of waiting, why God's timeline is the ultimate director.
Oh,
Can't
okay.
wait to see that.
Yes, we are nothing but pencil in the hand of the creator.
Oh, yes.
Remember that one from long ago?
Yes.
Well, at Dinuga Productions. Let's move on now. I think we're moving on to The Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper has this Fubara. Others boycott as PDP faction holds convention. Abuja court halts event over Lamido's exclusion from chairmanship contest and restrain INEC from monitoring, recognizing outcome. Oyo High Court reaffirms jurisdiction to hear suit, and Wike and Yao battle Damagun governors for control of the headquarters. At the top, for The Nation, DSS recaptures suspected mastermind of Kogi church attack. Everything seems to be happening now. Oh, what a day, what a day. Best, or rather bank draft for Jimo Ibrahim Basri Award winners for collection today. At the bottom, Paystack suspends co-founder over sexual misconduct allegation. We had a conversation with Mr. Todimu Ige yesterday on the news, and he outlined a few very interesting facts here. Now, these are just expressions. Everything that he put up on Twitter, there is no complainant. And he can always come back and just simply retract and say, oh, I was perhaps maybe undergoing some mental state. I'm not, I'm out of now. And everything would be okay. But then again, there's still implications regarding some tweets that refer to instances that actually happened inside the office. So that would warrant a suspension by Paystack, it would seem. But more on that later. Moa Akbewala to prosecute parties involved in shady deals. I didn't scam Oba, says Obaseki. And crisis rocks Ondo Assembly over Aida Tiwa's 531 billion naira budget request. Very bottom, and lastly, for The Nation, we ride with criminals to court. Magistrate cries out. I'd like to see that one. That would be on page 2 on The Nation newspaper.
And let's see what next.
All right.
Like we have a couple of papers. I think we'll do the Saturday Vanguard.
Yes, indeed, the Vanguard.
Awesome. So right at the top, it said court halts PDP convention. It will go on, but a judge insists clashes with Wike and Lamido. And then, of course, you find that in page 8. Beside it, blue economy, worry, cocoa port / turnaround time, erode Lagos congestion. That's page 14. Besides it, customers, why prostitute thrives in a hypocritical society. Nigeria, where every meeting starts with prayer, erupts in war, and ends with amen. Page 26. I would like to read that. I would really like to read that. And then, of course, in very bold font, economy, experts disagree with federal government on performance. On page 10, it says Nigeria's economy improvement largely on paper, stability not enough. We are in very embarrassing situation. Nigeria still in debt trap. Economy has not turned corner. Economy looks healthier in charts than it feels in households. And economy reforms, we are on the right path by different people from Action Aid, from Bako, from Adori, Ebomiade, and Mude Yusuf.
No, thanks to the Vanguard, we don't need to read that story again. Everything is on the front page.
Right. And beneath Wike versus Yerima, Tinubu intervenes, peace returns to Abuja, disputed land on page 34.
Let me say something about this here, Queen.
Right.
Now, it's not just enough to just simply tell that peace has returned to Abuja. I think you need to communicate to the people so they understand what's happened.
Right.
People do not seem to understand what the insistence of the FCT minister was on accessing that land. People seem to think that, well, he might have crossed a couple of lines when it comes to interaction. That is clear. However, he did have every right to want to access that land. It's under his purview. He is the FCT minister, so you can't stop him. You shouldn't. Then there are other questions regarding the conduct of or the presence of the naval officer on land. Naval officer on land. Yes, he was following command. Understandable. But why exactly was he there? What was he doing there? Whose land is it absolutely? And how did that person get that land?
You know, the truth of the matter is what you just said is so true. And I feel like this is a conversation that they themselves can answer. And we hope we'll be able to get it because we don't want hearsay or people just saying, oh, is this, is that.
And that's it.
Exactly.
Communication. If you don't, people will just assume.
And like you said, they were both standing on authority and or what they felt was right. Of course, the whole turnout was a bit,
It was chaotic in the end, and people will take from it what they want to take from it. People would suggest that, oh, look, he was such a proper military man, he must have the authority over the minister. But no, it was the ministers
doing his job.
The minister that was actually in the right there. But I do commend his conduct.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done in that instance, but let's just.
And before you go to the next page, beside the next paper, beside it says federal government clears 3.9 billion naira pension backlog.
They have they? Congratulations to them.
To all the pensioners, yay!
Congratulations. Finally, the Guardian newspaper for a Saturday. Contentious PDP convention, complex deals that frustrates opposition parties' revival. This is on page 10. It's got all the pictures of the who is who on the front page there. Warri Cocoa Port revitalization will boost national equity, economic inclusion, says the NPA. And Akiolu tasks governments on better funding for education, special salaries for teachers. That on page 43. At the top for The Guardian, you've got these. Campaign against hunger unites farmers, other stakeholders, and why Nigeria needs more universities after all. Nuhu Ribadu, from fighting graft to tending nation's security. Congratulations, sir. Doing a good job. And of course, PDP crisis deepens as Damagun-led NWC ignores BOT's advice, court orders against National Convention on page 2. NDLEA strengthens maritime operations as Tinubu reappoints Mawa for second tenure to end in 2031. And FG targets 4.8 trillion grain from health sector, renewed investment initiative. That's all for the Guardian newspaper there this morning. And I do believe that that's all for the front pages on today's edition as we kick off our Saturday. Yes, indeed. Now, let's go on a short break. And when we come back, we write, well, there you are. Oh, there you are again. Let's go on a short break. And when we get back, we'll be getting our teeth sunk into the meat of today's discussions inside our very first big report. Stay with us.
Good morning again, and it's Breakfast Extra on News Central, and we begin today with Kogi State, where reactions are pouring in after the House of Assembly suspended Emmanuel Onuche, the chairman of Ibaji local government area, citing gross misconduct and actions that allegedly tarnished the state's image. The Assembly says it has set up a 5-member investigative committee, which has 1 month to report. In the meantime, Onuche is to hand over power to his deputy, Victoria Okolo. But not everyone thinks the suspension was handled cleanly. Some civil society groups are calling it a political witch hunt, warning that it undermines local government autonomy and could set a dangerous precedent. Meanwhile, a group of Ibaji elites described the lawmakers' move as a brazen use of office to discredit the local government, accusing them of damaging the political prospects of the riverine communities ahead of future elections.
Now, let's take a look at our report that was filed in from during the week on these matters. And we'll be back to discuss this with our guest.
The State House of Assembly had earlier appointed a 5-member committee chaired by Bode Ogumola. The committee was given a mandate to submit its report in 1 month's time.
If there is a petition against him, was there any petition? Was there any complaint? Why? What is the secrecy? All we need to do now is to constitute a committee to investigate. Meanwhile, the person has been suspended. And you are claiming that the person who was suspended will alter the investigation. Is it a criminal that he has committed? Has he been tried in the law court? What about if at the end of the day, the investigation did not indict him? Yeah, you already removed him from the office temporarily, he didn't on suspension.
A legal expert, Bamidele Suru, threw his weight behind the decision of the state lawmakers, saying that the Assembly acted within their powers granted by the 2023 Kogi State Local Government Law.
So what the Kogi State House of Assembly has done is in line with the law made by the Kogi State House of Assembly in 2023. That is section 22 of that law. And I'm going to read a portion of that law to you. It says, when the chairman or vice chairman is facing any panel or a committee of the House of Assembly in investigating his official conduct, he may be suspended from office by the House of Assembly for the purpose of ensuring a thorough investigation by a vote of simple majority. So that is the provision of Section 22 of the Act. But when there is an investigation as relating to his conduct, the House of Assembly, they have the power to suspend local government chairman. And that power is derivable from the Section 27, Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution.
While the submission of Emmanuel Onuche remains a matter of public debate, it is clear that the committee's report, when submitted, will likely influence discussions on governance, accountability, and the limits of legislative authority over local governments in Kogi State. In Kogi for News Central, Morno Balagbubu.
Thank you there to Monok Balagbobo, our News Central correspondent in Kogi State. And now we are being joined by Umar Mohammed, an advocate of good governance in Kogi State. Umar, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And let's already get started with our first question. What exactly are the specific allegations against Onuche? Let's start there before we go further.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Good morning. From the look of things up till now, the government is yet to make public, what the allegations are. We've checked with the Kogi State House of Assembly and even within the local government and chieftaincy offices, and even to the House of the chairman, the Ibaji local government chairman, who was suspended. And up till now, there is no, clear-cut reason as to why he was suspended and exactly what the allegation was. But what we just learned is that it's gross misconduct, and that is what the State House of Assembly is acting on. But in details, as regard what that gross misconduct is still what we are yet, to find out.
Okay, so Mr. Mohammed, can you also just give us a view, like, the Kogi State House of Assembly, do they have the legal power under the 1999 Constitution to suspend a democratically elected local government chairman?
Yes, they do. According to Section 7.1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended 1999, the State House of Assembly has, the prerogative to make laws for the states, for the local government, at the same time to oversight the local government. We've been having conversation around local government autonomy, and just last year, the president, approached the Supreme Court, and what he approached the Supreme Court for was to get the Supreme Court to translate, to tell to Nigerians, and also to explain, the section of the Constitution which define the local government as a tier of government, which the Supreme Court affirmed that it's a tier of government. And if you say, a section or a government is a tier, it simply means it should have, the autonomy and all its internal workings, independent of any other, section. However, that from the feedback from that, Supreme Court position, what we saw being implemented was the financial, aspect of the autonomy. We do not see the political and even the administrative running of it. You could recall that up till now, the local government and the state government still operates a joint account, which is also supported by relevant sections of the Constitution, until all these sections, which to an extent merge the local government and the state government together, are taken care of through a constitutional amendment. There is no way we won't see this kind of situation that is happening in Kogi, and it will remain legal because the Constitution allows for it.
Constitution aside, let's talk about the traditional rulers, the residents, the small political actors. I'm wondering on what side they fall. Do they see this as a justified suspension, or do they think it's a power play of some sort?
As far as I am concerned, I've not seen, the traditional rulers' position as regard, this suspension. But I know that as we move closer to 2027, we are going to see, a whole lot of this kind of situation happening because the political, sphere will be saturated, as we move closer to 2027. Dynamics will continue to change.
And that's why I'm asking, Umar. Umar, that's why I'm asking, because this is a democratically elected officer. And I'm wondering, that representation that he carries, what's happening to that representation? Are the people he's supposed to be representing, are they agitated? Do they think that, no, something is wrong here? Or do they see this as justifiable? Yeah,
Yes. Some section of the Ibaji people, have really raised issues. And also those of us within the civil society, good governance advocates, and you could hear Idris Miliki also made his position, public. We are looking at it that, all this negates, the position of democracy as we have it. But what we are seeing basically is that our constitution also supports it. Ibaji is currently calm, but there are, people from other quarters who feel that this is a political witch hunt. And Ibaji is actually, a very volatile, environment, which, if this particular situation is not taken care of, may likely spiral, into something untoward. We do not pray that that happens. But there is need, for the state government to look at, amicable solution, to what has happened. And also consider that, this person is an elected representative. There are also arguments that the State Assembly, which has also suspended the chairman, are also, elected representative of the people, which Ibaji local government also have a representative who doubles as the deputy speaker of the State House of Assembly. In the course of that sitting where the chairman was suspended, the deputy speaker didn't say, didn't defend, what the outcome was. So it simply means to an extent, even the people of Ibaji is ably represented and they are in concurrence with whatever has happened. But in all, if you look at it from the moral aspect of it, it negates the principles of democracy. But then it's in our constitution.
Right. So, Mr. Mohammed, before you go, let's talk about the committee that's been created to investigate the alleged misconduct. It's been stated that one of the committee members were part of the people who, who voted to have him suspended. Now, do you think the people of Kogi would receive the result, knowing fully well there was someone there who was part of the people who suspended the local government chairman?
So, looking at that situation, I think the State House of Assembly erred to an extent because that would bring, into play the issue of conflict of interest, which will not favor the suspended local chairman, in any way. So, having people at the forefront of the suspension also making part of the committee, it's an unfair deal. It's like already making the judgment even before the investigation commences. And these are some of the things that we are also looking at, and we are saying that even if he has done what he has alleged to do, that is, that principle of fair hearing, looking at the Section 7 of the Constitution, which allowed the State Assembly to, investigate and do what they need to do. However, in constituting that committee, there should be fairness, there should be principle of fairness, and also the characters the people that should make up, this committee should also be people that are neutral, as far as this situation is concerned, and will be able to, do the investigation the way they ought to do it and come up with, a solution, a verdict as far as that is concerned. However, we are not seeing that happening, and we are calling on the state government also to the State House of Assembly to look at this and reconstitute that committee, within the ambit of the law and fairness.
Umar Mohammed, we want to say thank you very much for bringing some light to this issue. We'll continue to wait and see and also follow the investigations and maybe have you back again to discuss this when it concludes. Thank you, Umar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Now let's do a break, and we've got more big reports inside of today's edition for Breakfast Extra. Do stay tuned. It's Mazzino and Queen today. Welcome back. It's still Breakfast Extra. It's Mazzino and Queen today. Now, let's turn to Kano State, a state that sadly knows this headline too well. Another fire has torn through a commercial area, this time the Singa Market, destroying more than 40 shops and leaving traders in fresh agony. Now, goods worth an estimated 200 million naira went up in flames. And once again, the question that surfaced every Harmattan season are back. Why does Kano keep burning, and why do we seem unable to break the cycle?
And as the dry winds pick up each year, so do these fires, raising deeper concerns about safety culture, building standards, overcrowded commercial spaces, and the strain on emergency responders. To help us understand the human impact and the broader seasonal trend, we have Emmanuel standing by in Kano. And of course, we'll also be speaking with Al Hassan Hamad Kateen on fire safety, market regulation, and the broader picture behind this recurring disaster, Mazzino.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. We've just been told that Emmanuel might not be joining us for this conversation, but you're welcome, sir. Good to have you here, sir. Let's first start by asking the very important question about how come we always have these kinds of occurrences when we get to this part of the year, the Harmattan season. What are the factors that bring about this situation?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning,
Good
to you and our beautiful listeners. Before we venture into that, there are key things you need to know when it comes to fire outbreak. First is the science behind every fire. A fire could not occur without three elements. The first is fuel, second is oxygen, and the third is heat. When you have these elements in appropriate proportion, you are bound to have a fire outbreak. So if you have knowledge of these three key elements, your duty would be to avoid the coming together of these elements in appropriate proportion. So whether it is in the market, workplaces, at home, wheresoever, anywhere we see fire, these key elements come into existence. Now, if you talk of oxygen, oxygen is abundant in the atmosphere. It's natural. If you talk of fuel, human being itself is fuel. Anything that can be consumed by fire is fuel. So on this now, you could imagine how human can live without fuel. So we are all surrounded by fuel. And the third item or the third element is heat. That is what we humans have control over. That is the item or the element we can manage. Now, when you talk about Singa Market and all markets in Kano, markets cannot do without fuel. In fact, all markets, almost all markets sell fuel. Fuel sells fuel. Human beings sell fuel. I don't know if I'm communicating. Now, if human being is selling fuel in the market, human being is surrounded by fuel. The market itself is surrounded by fuel. What else do you expect? Already there is abundant oxygen in the atmosphere. The only thing you have control over is heat, as I said earlier. Now, if heat is not properly managed wheresoever, it doesn't matter whether it's in the market, as I said earlier, you are bound to have fire. Now, when you come to markets in Kano, usually fires do occur midnight or early morning. Now, the recent fire at Singa Market was traced to electric spark. The electric spark generated heat and fire started. How long or when did the fire started? We cannot ascertain. But at the time the fire was reported, almost 25 shops were up in the flame. Now, what are the rules in play when it comes to fire outbreak in the market? First, there is high fuel loads around the market. Ignition sources, that's when you talk about the poor or substandard electrical wiring. What is it called? Solar systems. When you also talk about poor compartmentation. You see about a building that covers more than 100 feet with 25 or more than 25 shops sharing the same roof. What do you expect? If there is fire in one room, there is every tendency that it will spread, it will extend to other shops. Now, you talk about the Harmattan factor. Of course, there is low humidity. There is dry air in the atmosphere. And what this air does is to enable the fire to spread widely. Now, let me take you back a bit. One thing you need to know about...
Before you take us back, Alassane, we do have our correspondent who has joined us now.
Yes.
And would also like to take some information from him because he was on the spot on the day of the fire.
Yes.
Queen, please go ahead.
Emmanuel, thank you for joining us. Can you give us an insight as to how are the traders interpreting this incident, especially knowing fully well that this situation is, reoccurred before, and are they seeing this as part of a worrying trend or an isolated accident? Emmanuel?
Yes, what they are saying is straightforward. They believe that the fire would have been prevented if there is a presence of a fire station at the Singa Market. In fact, they made it clear that the issue of establishing a fire station at the Singa Market has been allegedly politicized because they mentioned that the Singa Market has a fire control vehicle which has not been brought into the Singa Market. Had it been that fire control vehicle was there at the time the fire started, they should have been able to control and minimize the loss. So they are calling on the government. They are making it clear that Singa Market is a big market that provides a lot of revenue for the state government and the federal government, and then there has to be a presence of a fire station in that market, because there is a fire station in Kantinkori, the popular, wholesale shop in Kano. There is a fire station at Sabongari. There is a fire station at Bata. But why is it that there is no fire station at Singa Market? They believe that vehicle, which they believe the Association of Traders in the Singa Market, have, the vehicle should be brought immediately, because somebody allegedly mentioned that it is because of parking space. But they believe that government must, fulfill their promise by bringing back that fire control vehicle to them, and then ensuring that there is a fire station in the Singa Market, just like it is available in other markets. Yeah.
Mr. Alassane, I'm wondering if you'd like to respond to the situation here that Emmanuel has just raised regarding the absence of a fire truck in that market as against all other markets there in Kano.
Yes, may I humbly inform you that there are federal fire service in Kano, Kano State Fire Service, as well as private fire services in Kano. The fire truck in question, we are not in the picture as far as federal fire service is concerned in Kano. And we've been doing the best we could to get closer to the Canteen Quarry Market Association or the management of the Canteen Quarry Market Association. In fact, there is a lecture, a fire safety training we scheduled for next week. So I cannot respond to such allegation of politicization. I can only speak for the federal fire service at Kano level. Thank you.
And we noted this in the beginning where we told that Kano State always has a recurrence of these kinds of situations, especially during the Harmattan period. So we're wondering what measures have been put in place so far, noting that this, well, from past experience, always happens when it comes to accessibility of these kinds of facilities like markets. What has the fire service put in place to help or aid should there be an instance of a fire breakout?
Let me remind you that the best way to fight fire is to prevent it from occurring. And one of our mandates is that we are responsible for responding to emergencies. We fight fire and prevent fire. We save lives and property. Now, if you look at these mandates, picture Kano markets in this picture now. Now, have you ever been to Singa Market? Do you know what it takes? Do you know what it takes for you to pass through the market even on foot? So there are measures that ought to have been put in place right from the development of the plan, of the market plan or design. And we are finding it so difficult now to romance both the market association as well as the government. What will it take? Should we recommend relocation of the market from the heart of the city to a safer place? Or should we penetrate and enforce regulations? These are the challenges we are having as far as markets, not single markets alone in Kano, as far as markets are concerned in Kano. Are you aware that there is a market, a market in Kano that almost on annual basis, fire outbreaks is being recorded? And it suffers the same feature with Singa Market. So this has to do with the management of the market as well as the government. The Federal Fire Service do not have the right to relocate the market to a safer place. So at Kano level, at Kano command level, what we are doing is to ensure that these marketers are trained. And that was where the initiative of market fire marshal come in, where we seek to train the market guards. In case of emergency, they should be able to respond even before the arrival of firefighters. So in response to your question, what we need to do or what we've been doing is to remind these marketers, train them as well as the security team that are always on ground, because usually these fires come up at midnight. So these are the two things we are currently doing, and we've been penetrating all markets. Now, there is another setback also, or a challenge. You find it difficult to convince people when it comes to fire prevention. What people do understand is fire protection. If there is a fire, they should call the fire service. And we are not saying that now. Before the fire starts, let's educate you on what causes fire and how you can prevent fire. And should in case, if there is an emergency, these are the things you need to do even before the arrival of the firefighter. This is the meeting point. And we are in the season. That's why at both the federal level and state level, we do organize a fire safety week where initiatives are centered around intensive fire prevention activities. So as far as the command is concerned, what we are after is fire prevention, not even fire protection. Now,
So, Emmanuel, I wanted to ask you now that you were there live and you saw what happened in the market and the response of the traders saying that, you know, if they had the fire truck there, but now the deed has been done. Has there been any response from the government as to how they can help the traders? Do the traders have any form of fire insurance as to how to get some level of, you know, payment or money back after they've lost so much?
The only intervention they actually said was being made was the fact that the chairman of the association, his name is Barrister Junaid Mohammed, has made a contact with government authorities, where the government said that there has to be a space for the fire control vehicle. That is the only intervention for now. For now, they are still counting their losses, and they are still taking note of the damage being done so far. But they have made it clear that their chairman, Barrister Junaid, has made contact with the government authorities concerned, and that, of course, there are some places may have to be demolished, some spaces may have to be created for the fire control vehicle to come in, because they mentioned, the chairman of the association told me that there is the issue of space. Just like, of course, the fire service spokesman made it clear that penetrating that place is very, very, very so congested. We're talking about hundreds, even thousands of youths coming in there just to make a living, and is on a 24-hour basis. So, and we have this massive explosion of Nigerian youths between the ages of 15 and 25 coming in there to make a living, and they're making good money there, you know, because the commercial activity at the Singa Market is so unprecedented. So there's an issue of space, and of course, they made it clear that the space is being provided currently for the fire control vehicle to come in. But for compensation, they've not heard anything yet. But of course, we have seen a statement from the office of the Kano State Governor, of course, Governor Kabir Yusuf, who commiserated with those who have lost their properties, and of course said they are going to look into the situation to see how they can, you know, reduce the pains of those who have lost their properties. Yeah.
Well, Emmanuel, you are stationed in the north and you've seen these instances spread across the north. But Kano's case is a bit different. So I'm wondering what persists when it comes to Kano? Why do we keep having these more frequently than we do in other states in the north? Is it something to do with habit? Is it something to do with structure or maybe planning? What exactly makes Kano's instance different from the rest of the northern states?
This answer is very straightforward. Kano is northern Nigeria powerhouse in terms of population and commercial activities. The only thing Kano is known for is the main thing they are known for is agriculture, commerce, and then of course politics. So you cannot just just look at it and believe that this is expected, right? I just mentioned it that in fact, if there has to be any census currently, I can predict that Kano may be at par or even be ahead of Lagos in terms of population, because over the years, from the statistics I have, the expansion and the young people that have come into Kano, the birth rates and the ungoverned spaces that are available in Kano, because there's this initiative by former Governor Rabi Musa Bonkozo, who has created mega cities. In other words, he has expanded the state in order to contain the population. But unfortunately, nobody is ready to leave the city center. They are all, jam-packed and congested into the city center. Nobody's interested. In fact, there was a time the current governor, imposed revocation of properties at the Concosia estate. That's somewhere around Zaria Road at the outskirts. Because nobody wants to leave the city center to go and occupy lands, free lands, almost at free, cheap houses. But they all come in and they contest themselves inside this city center, making life very difficult for themselves and for the government and for everybody. That is the reason why Kano is having that kind of issue. Congestion and massive population explosion of youth. Of course, not necessarily educated formally. They really believe in commerce because commerce has been a tradition. Business has been a tradition. If you can see those guys, hustling every day at Singa Market, that is what they know for now. They believe that they have to make that money first and, before they can be able to go to school.
Okay.
Because that is a tradition. But it is right now, I think this is only this administration, from my records, only this administration that has invested a lot in education. An unprecedented 31% are dedicated to formal education by Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf. But other administrations will just look at it and say, okay, our people are doing very well, let us allow them, they can fend for themselves. But I can tell you that commerce is the reason why, in fact, commerce, within the 44 local governments of Kano State, commerce has been the attraction of the youth, and they will continue to, come into Kano City Center, come into the commercial nav center of Kano.
All right, then.
Whether we like it or not. And that has to be controlled. That has to be controlled by, just like what the PRO the spokesman of fire service said, we have to take the market to a bigger space.
Right.
We have to, decentralize the market. That is the reason why Kano has that issue. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thank you for that report, at least for Nigerians to see that, it's not just Balogun Market that is facing this Harmattan season fire. We also have it in Kano. We appreciate that report. And of course, to DSP of Fire Service, I hope I got that right, Mr. Hal Hassan Hamed Kateen. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the work that the fire service do for the nation. It's tedious, and we're hoping that when the single market is being reviewed, they will consider space and congestion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now to stay tuned. It's our second hour here for Breakfast Extra. We've got very interesting conversations coming your way this hour. We'll be back. Good morning once again. Welcome. It's still Breakfast Extra. And in Abuja this week, a confrontation at Gadua between the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and a serving naval officer has opened a window into a much deeper problem: how power, privilege, and protection intersects in Nigeria. What looked like a simple land dispute has become a symbol of a larger fault line, the way elites borrow the instruments of the state to secure private advantage. At the heart of the controversy is Plot 1946, a piece of land the FCT administration says is a protected buffer zone, yet it has been fenced and guarded, allegedly on behalf of a former chief of naval staff. And with a serving naval officer, Lieutenant Ahmad M. Yerima, posted to secure it, when Wike showed up to enforce the law, he was blocked, not by private developers, but by uniformed personnel acting on orders.
That clash has ignited an important debate. When the state's coerced power is deployed in the service of private interest, who really holds power in Nigeria? Is the uniform a neutral shield of authority or a tool in the hands of those who already have leverage? Here with us are Dennis Amakri, Dr. Dennis Amakri, a national security analyst, and David Hundeyi, an investigative journalist. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us at Breakfast Extra.
Good morning.
Dr. Dennis.
Oh, go ahead, Queen.
Mazi?
Go ahead, Queen.
Dr. Dennis, good morning. Thank you for waking up so early to join us. From a national security perspective, what does it mean when a serving naval officer is posted to guard a piece of land allegedly belonging to a retired naval chief? Does this blur the line between state duty and private service?
Well, good morning. I think there is a little misunderstanding, in the whole scenario here. We have to understand one thing. Anytime the military person or police or whoever, anywhere in the world, when they are wearing the uniform, they are on official duty, anywhere. You find out that even in the United States here, you don't see soldiers wearing their just wearing their uniform and moving around. You know, they don't do that, except, well, in Nigeria, we've been able to desecrate the uniform to a very large extent, where even you see two policemen fighting, that's pure desecration, you know. But normally, the standard is that the uniform, you know, is a symbol of state authority, and desecrating it is a threat to national security.
What would desecrating mean? Could you give us more insight into what would entail desecration? What desecration would entail?
Desecration will mean dishonor, you know, or assault, pointing, you know. Well, for lawyers, they know if you are talking with somebody and you start poking into their face, that's an assault. And assault is desecration. And of course, using all kinds of words, like in this particular case, when we're talking about you are a fool, and of course the officer was saying that I'm not a fool. You know, situations like that, you know, is actually desecrating the uniform that the officer is wearing. And then of course it's because of the symbolism of it, you know, it means that you are actually challenging the authority of the commander-in-chief, because he is the one that gives the commission to such officers.
Dr. Dennis, thank you very much. Here we see two arms of government, of the same government, actually going head-to-head. Now it leads to audiences to speculation or conclusions over who was right, who was wrong, or who actually really holds power, the man with the law or the man with the gun. But I'm going to come back to that, and we're going to make those definitions very soon. I want to talk to David Hunay. Welcome again. David, what have you found out as a private investigator about Plot 1946?
So there isn't any sort of breaking news here. I think everything there is to know about the case is already in the public domain. The FCTA insists that this plot is part of a buffer zone under the Abuja master plan. And on the, you know, as it so often happens, this land has been acquired through some means. You know, I'm not here to speculate to what means, but this land has been acquired by someone who used to be the chief of naval staff, who has the privilege, obviously, of being protected by active servicemen. So the naval officer in the video, whose response to the FCT minister caused all this furore, he was just doing his job. He was, as he said very clearly, he was acting on an order. He was under instruction. For him, it would be an abdication of duty to have done anything else apart from what he did. So what really stands out to me here is that the public administration of Nigeria as a country, the way Nigeria is governed as a country, has deteriorated to a point where different factions of the top level, if you like, hierarchy or oligarchy are now having like direct face-offs and conflicts with each other. Because what we've known, or what we've come to expect for a while now, is that while Nigerians are divided at lower levels, like the middle classes and lower classes are divided through 1001 means, that the oligarchy that is in charge of Nigeria doesn't really have any internal rancor. That has been the case. It's, you know, it's almost become a cliche thing that we say, that regardless of whatever ethnic or religious or economic divisions exist at the lower levels of the Nigerian strata, that the people who are in charge of Nigeria don't fight with each other, that they're united. But now we have a situation where the serving FCT minister and a past chief of naval staff have become national news because of this sort of confrontation. And you and I know that this is not a simple case of the FCT minister trying to enforce the law. You know, 9 times out of 10 in Nigeria, that's not how these things work. There's usually some sort of personality dispute or personality clash that underlies this. So, you know, that this melodrama that we're witnessing, I think, is like the public face of something deeper going on underneath. It signifies one of two things: either A, that the FCT minister has a personal bone to pick with other powerful people in Nigeria, and that bone that he's picking is what is playing out.
Is there precedence for this? Is there precedence for this?
So you would have to go back maybe to the Babangida or the Abacha era to find precedent for this, where the instruments of states were personalized to an extent where there was very little separation between the institutions of states and the personalities of the people behind the state. Since Nigeria supposedly became democratic in 1999, it's not as if things like this haven't happened, but it's been rare to see them at the very, very, very top level like this. So this is a bit novel. But again, to me, what this signifies is that, as I said, either A, there's that personality clash going on, or B, and in my opinion, this is the worst option, that the internal governance or the threads holding the governance structure of Nigeria together are now so frayed that we're now having elite civil wars, which will not be good news at all. And I really hope that's not the case.
Thank you. Dr. Makri, my question now is, do you think this situation that happened would be the reason that, would you say this situation that happened is because we have some gap in security and how do I say, accountability and documentation? Because I would say if there were no cameras and then the naval officer was trigger happy, I'm sure we would have been, reporting crises of dead bodies here and there. So do you think that there is a hole in our system? Because if they had proper documentation and he had all the necessary information, then this situation wouldn't have happened.
It said, we might be dealing with the symptoms. We don't know what's the water that is running below the bridge. I was listening to a press conference by the minister where he was mentioning that the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, had a similar problem, and they called him, and even General Danjuma also had another one that he called him, and then of course he took care of it. So we don't know, was this a situation where they didn't call each other, or they did and they didn't agree, and then of course the admiral had to send his officers to go down there to protect, because we have a lot of cases already on ground in the public domain where there are allegations of land grabbing, and then of course demolitions and all kinds of stuff. There is even one that there was the first cadet in the Nigerian Defense Academy's land, was forcefully taken. So I think there is the administration of land management in the FCT has become one that, of course, had to be looked into properly, because you don't have to. If you have your papers, then you have your papers. You don't have to call anybody to regularize the papers. Or if you have your papers, I don't see why somebody should come and, bulldoze it and then reallocate it. I think this is, there is really some serious issues going on in the FCT about land that needs to be addressed, by a higher authority, maybe the Federal Executive Council, because, of course, here we have the minister himself involved, and then, of course, you see the minister going out himself to the field. Of course, they try to justify it that, he cannot sit in his office, but if everything was working normally, there should be no reason for an appearance, of the minister in the field. There are officers, top officers, who are paid, to take care of allocation, confiscation, or whatever. So I think there is more to it than meet the eye.
Briefing, Minister Wike, the FCT minister, he did defend his action. He did say that it's not a personal thing against the military in any way, shape, or form, but that he was concerned about the way the land was acquired. He also said something about the alleged owner. He said that the land in question is linked to retired Chief of Naval Staff Vice Admiral Zubairu Gambo, and he criticized what he called the impunity of the retired naval chief for allegedly deploying active duty naval officers to guard the property. But that's beside the point. The main thing here is perhaps maybe we should inquire exactly how this land was obtained in the first place. This seems to be something that's missing in the entire narrative here. How did the naval officer retired obtain that land, and what were the conditions around it? Was it from a current dispensation or a past dispensation? If this is someone who is retired, then he's been in the business for a very long time, and this might have been one of those occasions where lands were given to generals or high-ranking officials. I don't know if David has anything to say about this.
Well, I guess the only thing that I would add is that, again, which is following up from what I said earlier, this personalization of the state, which was something that began, unfortunately, under the military, and which, under the supposedly democratic dispensations, hasn't. Maybe the incidence has reduced a bit, but it still exists very much. I think that this goes to the heart of one of the issues with the nation building project that is Nigeria, which is that there has always been a lack of understanding on the part of people in power that being in having the ability to channel national resources, having oversight over national resources is not the same thing as owning national resources. That the fact that you have the ability to write land allocations, for example, doesn't give you the power or the prerogative to violate, for example, the city master plan, or to take away people's ancestral land, or to do all the crazy things that are done with land in Nigeria. I know a thing or two about this because I come from a background where some of my family members were directly involved in land administration, although in Lagos, not at federal level. And people with power in Nigeria, people with political power, use disbursement of land and favors relating to land the same way they use money, for example, for vote buying. And this is wrong. Right? This is just fundamentally wrong. First of all, it creates issues like this where 10, 20 years down the line, a new government comes in, and then whether through sincerity or through some other vendetta or agenda, goes through the initial master plan, and they're like, no, you need to seize this place, or we need to demolish this place, and then it becomes a whole thing. Sometimes innocent people get dragged in, all because there was greed on the part of a public official sometime in 1997 or something. This is wrong. But unfortunately, it seems to me that at all levels of the Nigerian project, both at the federal and at the state levels, those who have been entrusted with the keys to the levers of public resources really do not understand the responsibility that has been placed on them, that you have a responsibility. This is not a gift to you or your family. It's a responsibility that has been placed in your care to ensure that you use the power that you have to accomplish some sort of development, as against use it as an opportunity to enrich yourself and reward those around you for the 4 or 8 years that you will be in power, And then as soon as you leave power, you then have to hope that who is coming next doesn't, decide to fight you. And then it becomes a whole back and forth thing, which is what happens in Nigeria. And then we end up running around in circles for
David.
16, 20, 24 years instead of making progress. So I think those who have power in Nigeria, it's probably a forlorn hope at this point, and it's probably a cliche to say this, but those who have power in Nigeria, if we're ever to avoid situations like this in future, need to see the power that they have, especially when it comes to issues like land administration, as a responsibility and as a privilege, not as something that they have the prerogative to misuse.
Now, David, that seems you seem to have opened another kind of worms here when it comes to how land was allocated, especially inside of military regimes, where they were practically gifted, not necessarily with documentation, and that seems to be what is rearing its head here. I'm only just speculating here, but it does bring to the fore these kinds of issues on how these lands were acquired and the legality of it, and how that legality applies now with the current dispensation and what we have now, especially in the FCT, where there is strict regulation on land. But then the presidency also has come out to tell that everything is fine and good, that there's no rancor between the minister or the military, but that's all the information they gave. They didn't tell us exactly how this ends, what the numbers are, who the people are, so that the masses would understand the details. In such a situation, you have people who would have their own ideas of what right and wrong is, and that seems to be a systemic problem in Nigeria. Let's take a look and see what ordinary Nigerians are thinking about this issue, and then I'll come back to Dr. Amakri so he can give us his take on what I've just told. Let's take this vox pop as we went to the streets to ask people their take on the issue.
I think everything has been politicized in this country, and I believe it's not supposed to be like that, because what is happening is that man's no man. That is what they are doing, which things are not supposed to be done in that way. The way the naval officer handled the case, the matter is very professional.
We have to look at it in two ways, the Wike and the military man. It's like Wike was paid back in his own coin. You get what I'm saying? He has forgotten that you can't eat your cake and have it at the same time. So he proved his power in River State, and somebody showed him in Abuja. Ideally, he is a minister of FCT, as Tinubu will call him a landlord, and he expected that the military officer should give him some respect. Did he actually respect anyone? In River State, when the event happened, did he respect anyone?
Forget about being a military officer. Even person in the society, nothing should have led, Wike to that kind of argument.
The two parties are right. Wike, by virtue of the fact that he's the minister for the FCT under the Land Use Act, is in charge of the land in FCT. And he didn't do anything outside the law. And for the naval officer too, if you know, in the military, there is a chain of command. You obey the orders of your superior. So he has to stand his grounds too, based on order.
Wike being in charge, being the minister of FCT, he need to follow the due process. The military people too must lead by example, so that others will follow.
And gentlemen, there we have it. Ordinary Nigerians giving you their take. Very diverse. People think this, people think that. And that seems to be the way it always follows after these kinds of issues or instances. Dr. Amakri, what would you consider due process, taking into account everything from the possession, who it might belong to, and when it might have been acquired, to the instance that we saw from last week between the minister and the naval officer?
Very much. Before I go into that, I would like to clear something about serving officers being attached or going to do the biddings of a retired general. I think it's allowed. It's allowed in, even with civilian presidents, they have protection until they die. There's DSS protection, or even in the United States here, they have Secret Service protection until they die. You know, so don't be surprised when you see a serving officer being attached or doing the biddings of a retired general or admiral. Okay, now, basically what we have seen here, what is playing out, and what people are talking about is the same. I think there's a lot of impunity going on. Impunity. And when we do things like this, sometimes we just go ahead and call it it's Niger way, or it's man no man, or something like that. How are lands allocated anywhere? Yes, we know that it's the governor that is the custodian, not that it is his own. It doesn't belong. The land does not belong to him. He's just holding it just for the public. And if, as we've seen in this case, people will be calling the minister to ratify certain things, I think that shows you that things are not normal. Things are not done properly. If people are given lands, they have their CFO. And it should be one that anybody who can have it will apply and get it. But you and I know that in Nigeria, lands are not like that, except you buy it from somebody. You cannot go and say, okay, I want land, and land is allocated to you. I think it has degenerated to a level of favors. We give something that belongs to the whole country as favor, not even on land. Think of the oil industry. Most of the oil operating licenses that are given out, where, the allocation of oil blocks is favor. Some people just walk in, and if I know the head of state or the president at any time, I can go there and beg him, and he gives me. It is not done in a formal way where you apply, you bid for it, and you get it. But all these things are given, like in terms of favor. And so it is with land, land allocations. So I think we have a lot of work to do. Right now, the disjunction, if I have to call it that, is happening, and we are seeing it. If it is a situation where everybody has to, if you want land in Abuja today, you apply, and then it is considered, and there is a vacant land, and they give it to you. That will be normal. But if I know the minister and I really want land, he can look for a land for me, no matter whether somebody is on it or not. So these are problems that we need to fix, in situations like this.
So, David, can you tell us, based on this investigation, apart from what we know, like you said, everything is already out there on socials and everything, was there anything that you found that was intriguing, apart from what we've all discussed right now and what we've talked about, that is not out there on socials at the moment?
This is it's a very banal and very mundane. Okay, mundane is not the word, but it's a very banal issue. And this has happened so many times. The only reason this is news is because of the spectacle involving Wike, and the fact that many people, you saw the people in the Vox Pop clip that you played. Many people seem a bit maybe happy that he's getting supposedly paid back in his own coin. So that's what is really generating all this reaction. But no, it's a bog standard case of misadministration coming back years later and being used either out of sincerity or out of spite as a weapon to fight the battle. And that's what is playing out here.
While we're talking about investigation, the military defense, Bello Matawale, Minister of State for Defense, he described this as very unnecessary. He was like, there was no need for all of that spectacle. as you called it. But he also noted something very interesting. He said that the naval officer was simply just obeying orders, which is true. And according to him, he said the service chiefs had advised Wike to let the military investigate, but that Wike ignored that advice and went ahead to site. So I'm wondering if there are any points to look at here. If he already had instruction or at least advice to please wait, let's take care of this militarily first of all, then was there any need for him to appear on site? Well, he is the minister then again. So this is a very interesting question here because he does have the rights and then there are questions regarding whatever had transpired from before. Why did he have to make such a move that seemed like as if he wanted to grandstand? And then again, what exactly is the condition regarding the land when it comes to its ownership by a military official? I'd like both gentlemen to answer this, but David, you go first.
Right. So again, this goes back to what I inferred earlier, that there's a very good chance that this is being used to prosecute some sort of personal vendetta. And if what the military authorities said is the case, then what that simply tells us is that the FCT minister has gotten into a war of a battle of wills with his latest enemy, which would happen to be the military. This is a man who has been able to impose his will on so many other Nigerian institutions, including the judiciary. So it would make sense that his next project would be to see what he can do to impose his will on the military as well. And obviously there's some pushback. The military is a very proud institution, you know, for good or for otherwise. You obviously cannot bully the military the way you can bully a civilian. So that's what's going on here. But if this is what they've said it is, then I doubt we've even heard the last of this issue, because Wike, being the kind of person that he is going to want to ensure that everyone involved in what he considers to be a public disgrace of his is going to receive recompense in some way. So as I said earlier, this is members of the Nigerian elite using public resources, because land, even under the Nigerian constitution, doesn't really belong to anybody. It belongs to the Nigerian state. So these are members of the Nigerian elite who have political power using resources of state to prosecute personal beefs and quarrels, which is not good news for the rest of us.
Dr. Makri?
I agree because, you know, one thing is this, the Navy Admiral, the retired Navy Admiral, remember he was the Chief of Naval Staff when I think the minister was the governor of Rivers State. And at that time, I think definitely because of the position of Rivers and all the rest, interactions must have gone on, you know, whereby they know each other very well. It is not a matter of I don't know you and you are grandstanding. You know, they know each other very well. So, like I said earlier, there might be things undercurrents that the public is not seeing, and I think that has to be taken care of. But the impunity, like I mentioned earlier, the impunity in whatever the minister is doing, I think should be reined in, because the commander-in-chief, I don't think will let this go, or even the Minister of Defense, or should I say the Chief of Defense Staff, because this kind of impunity brings disrepute, you know, to the military institution as a whole, and later trying to mend it up or change the narrative is not acceptable, because actually everybody have seen this. The day it was happening, I'm in the United States here, I was seeing it live, you know, so it is something that has gone around all over the globe. So I think there is need for the minister to do something public, you know, either in the terms of apology. Many of the generals that have come to speak, former, Chief of Defense Staff, General Rabo, all of them have come out to speak. And this has to be corrected, because if we brush it under the carpet, I'm even surprised that there is nothing coming out from the presidency, you know, because this thing has to be handled properly before it spills into other spheres.
Exactly.
You know, because when you have people in the cabinet having a clash between people in the executive itself. You mentioned earlier that this is something between two arms of government. No, it's the same arm. They are all in the executive. You know, the military itself, and of course the presidency, all are in the same arm. And this kind of disagreement that comes to public light is not something that we should just forget about it. And people will talk about it, and then after 2-3 weeks, it's gone. You know, I think it should be addressed properly. And then let's know the real protocol of what is supposed to happen, you know, from the presidency so that we can put this thing to rest.
Sir, thank you very much for saying this. My final question to you, Dr. Makri, is how far back does this go? If we're talking about documentation of landed properties that perhaps have been gifted, and I say perhaps very delicately, have been gifted to rear admirals, it wouldn't be just one. There would be a lot of them. If this case opens up that kind of perhaps discrepancy, how many of these cases are we going to see? And how does it work in the military? How do they go about these investigations? Will there be records of these properties being handed over to these military officials, even if it was in the past?
Well, the thing is this. It is not a matter of military. You know, lands are being allocated to people. If you are in the military or you are in the DSS or you are in the police and, you know, you want a land or you can talk to the governor of any state. And of course, I think he will give you preference. But what I'm saying is that, you know, how way back did it go? It has been a Nigerian system, you know, where, like I mentioned to you, even oil blocks are being allocated to people because they know the guy who is sitting on top of it. Okay, so do we want to follow a particular format and procedure in allocating this state-owned, because these properties does not belong to anybody. They don't belong to the president or the governor, you know, and these people are in that office. After a while, they are gone. So do we now try to regularize it or normalize it where, you know, if you want land, these are the processes that you will follow? Or all lands are up for sale, whereby you want to buy land, if you have the money, you go and buy. And there are real estate agents, okay? It's not one that, you know, even the president. Remember our girls who went and played football and won?
Yes.
When they came, he gave them allocation of lands. And they were given lands. Now, what did he do? He does not have any land constitutionally under him, but of course, he will tell, if it is going to be in any state, he tell the governor, or if it's going to be in the FCT, he will call the minister and tell him, okay, allocate lands to these, our soccer players, you know, and they will do it. So, what are the formalities in acquiring land? I think that question needs to be answered, so that somebody who will come later to become the governor or minister does not say, oh, okay, this was allocated to you improperly, and I'm going to, you know, seize it or cancel your CFO and reallocate it to my new friends, you know. Yeah, and it is happening all over the country. So I think it's something we need to look at properly.
Well, Dr. Makri, thank you so much. And David, for joining us and unpacking this. You know, this video has gone viral and everybody's talking about it, but it was a pleasure to have both of you join us and have this discussion and give us, you know, shed more light as to what possibly is happening behind the scenes that we're not aware. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, coming up, we have... Oh, Queen, that was you there for a second, but I'll do it. We've got more conversation as we approach our final hour here for Breakfast Extra for Saturday edition. Do stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It's bright, and of course, it's Breakfast Extra, and tensions are rising in Edo State after Benin indigenes staged a protest against the National Museum in Benin City, citing grievances over the display, interpretation, and preservation of artifacts from the ancient kingdom. Residents argue that some exhibits misrepresent Benin's history, while others claim that key cultural relics have been mismanaged or kept without proper consultation with the traditional authorities. The protest has sparked a wider conversation about cultural ownership, heritage management, and the role of government institutions in telling local histories. Many indigenes are demanding that the museum's curatorial practices be reformed to respect local knowledge systems, traditions, and the authority of the Benin monarch in shaping narratives about its history.
Joining us to unpack this issue is Amienye Oroge, former Senior Special Assistant to the Omoroge, I beg your pardon, former Senior Special Assistant to the Governor of Arts, Culture and Tourism in Edo State. Mr. Omoroge, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Omoroge, let me start.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you. Let me start by first of all asking exactly what went wrong. Why was there a dispute between the people and the officials who wanted so desperately, because it would seem they wanted the same thing, but the translations or interpretations were different? So what exactly went wrong?
All right, thank you very much. I want to state here categorically that, in the ancient city of Benin, the Benin monarch, the revered Benin monarch, is the head of the traditional institution in Edo State, is the custodian of our rich cultural heritage. Now, it is asserted that the Moa Pavilion, the Moa Museum, has not adequately carried the Benin traditional institution along. And there were some protests along the way trying to know the makeup of the Museum of West African Art and trying to investigate the state government involvement and all of that. And the traditional institution right here in Edo State wasn't too clear about the workings of the museum. I think the authorities of the museum got it wrong. They would have, at that point, make consultations with the Benin traditional institution before going ahead with that pre-opening event that they were doing. The words of the Oba of Benin is very valuable. The Benin will always say, Yemoba said. So if you are now going against what the Oba have said, it now means you are going against the entire Benin people. So that was the reaction you saw. But that's not to say that the protesters were right. There should have been a more diplomatic way for that to have been done, owing to the fact that we had visitors from across the globe witnessing that event.
Right. So, Morgan, I need to get this correctly. You just mentioned that one of the major issues was that they did not carry along the traditional rulers, the Benin monarch and the Oba. So was that the major issue, or the claim of misrepresentation of Benin history? Because they're two different things.
First and foremost, that is the major issue. The management of MOA would have, insisted that they have the buy-in of the Benin traditional institution. Although initially they had the Crown Prince enlisted as a member of the trustees, but that was not enough. They would have, gone, beyond that to have the full endorsement of the Benin monarch. is the custodian of the rich cultural heritage of the Benins. And of course, whatever that has to do with tradition, that has to do with art, that has to do with culture, that has to do with tourism, is impute. The local narrative must first be sorted. Now, if that is taken care of, the issue of misrepresentation of facts or of a wrong context about our artifacts, will be brushed aside because the original perspective will be brought to bear by the Benin traditional institution.
So I'm wondering exactly who has legal ownership over the cultural artifacts that were on display or that are to go on display. We hear that some of these were returned artifacts, and we're wondering who exactly is the caretaker, or who was it submitted to, who is responsible when it comes to it being taken care of. Can you give us that information?
All right, thank you very much. Under the National Heritage Law, the federal government ought to have taken ownership. But ethically and culturally, the Benin traditional authorities may assert their rightful ownership. So that's the way it is.
So at this point, have they exerted their rightful ownership, as you put it? Or is it still under the...
No, so far so good. All artifacts that have been returned has been taken to the Benin traditional institution, the Benin traditional authority.
Okay.
So, Morgan, my question now would be, knowing fully well that we all know that the artifacts from Benin have a whole lot of history about Nigeria, our rich culture and everything, and how, some artifacts have been returned after so many years of it being missing. My question now is, at what point, when MOA was trying to, open the museum, how did they come about the people who plan to work there and the people who tend to explain to, visitors or people coming all over about the Benin culture?
Curators.
Thank
you. Okay, this is what I said initially. A museum of this nature ought to have the local input. And where would they get this right information? It is from the Oba of Benin, who is the custodian of the rich cultural heritage of Benin. That is where, like I said before, they actually got it wrong. If they have, made their proper consultation with the palace and they have the buy-in of the Oba of Benin fully supported, of course, you should know that even before now, the revered Benin monarch have been also planning of the Benin Royal Museum. As Edo State is a land of culture, a land of art. Even if we have 4 or 5 museums scattered around Edo State, is not even enough. So I think that being said, they really need to go back to the root, because I feel that government will come and government will go, but the traditional institution remains.
Right. Morgan, you just mentioned that there's not just one museum, not just the MOA, there are other museums all over the place. Now, don't you think this will also affect the fact that, while having people send back what belongs to the Benin city, don't you think this is the time for the Benin people to come together as one and sort it out as a state and as a nation, and not, have different views as to where the artifact should be or which museum it should be handed to?
Where the artifact should be is not in contention at all. It should be in the possession of the revered Benin monarch, who is the head of the traditional institution in Edo State. That is why he was equally proposing to have the Benin Royal Museum. The MOA, the Museum of West African Art, from what I can see, is not just about artifacts. It's a research center, it's an archaeological center, which will also complement the Benin Royal Museum when we have it set up. So that's the way. There's no contention here, because we know where all the artifacts that are being returned should go to, and having the Museum of West African Art domicile here in Edo State is a plus. For Edo people.
The pre-opening was disturbed by the protests, so we're wondering what the state of things are currently. What compromise has been met, or are things still in a state of disarray regarding who or where or what?
All right, within the week, we had the Minister for Arts, Culture and Creative Economy leading a federal delegation to meet the state government with a bid to having all issues settled amicably. I think what they will have to do right now is to go back to the drawing board, ensure that the Benin traditional institution have their input, the state government have their input, and as well as the Museum of West African Art Management. There are a lot of things that this will bring into the Edo economy. The hospitality institution will benefit, our taxi drivers will benefit, our food vendors will benefit from this project. And from what I read the last time, we would have over 25,000 direct and indirect jobs just from the creation of this Museum of West African Art. So it should be a win-win for all of us, but the right thing should be done. The traditional institution must be well represented and carried along in this project.
Right, Morgue, I like the fact that you said it should be a win-win situation because, you know, nobody's looking for fights or wars, and then the traditional leaders should be carried along. But again, you mentioned earlier that although I think you said the Crown Prince was in the know or somehow in the signatory of the museum, if I heard you correctly. So would you say that the talks between the Prince and, you know, the process of the museum, they did not inform the leaders that they were going to take all the activists into the museum? I need to understand exactly. Is it that there were some level of miscommunication even when the Prince was involved?
Yeah, exactly, because the Prince is involved. Yeah. So that seems to be some level of representation from the other side of things.
Exactly.
No. It's, let me clarify.
Okay.
It should be the head of the traditional institution in Edo State, which is the revered king, the Oba himself, sending a representation. You are not going to choose for the Oba. The Oba will choose for himself who he wants as a representative in the board, if he so wishes. So that is how it ought to have been. So let's set this record straight.
Okay.
So, but I was told at a point that the traditional institution withdrew. That means that the Crown Prince withdrew from the Board of Trustees of MOA.
All right.
Okay. Margaret, thank you. I'm sure that this is, of course, an ongoing situation, and we'll follow up and see how it goes, and we're sure that the artifacts are saved and, you know, being put in the right place. So thank you, Margaret, for giving us an insight of what's happening all the way in Benin City.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So now, Mazino, let's go on a short break.
Yes,
I'm sure we
should.
still have other conversations, and we will be right back. Don't change the dial. Oh, thank you for staying with us. It's, of course, Breakfast Extra. And turning to South Africa, reactions are growing as the murder trial of soccer star Senzo Meyiwa makes another twist. A key state witness whose statement helped launch major portions of the case has publicly distanced himself from the prosecution, raising questions about the strength of the state's evidence.
Joining us to unpack this are Elton Hart, legal expert at the Law Clinic of the University of Journalism, and Nokwazi Ntombela, content creator, following the trial very closely. Gentlemen and lady, you are welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for joining us all the way from South Africa. Now, let me start with Elton. Elton, can you tell us the legal implications now that the main state witness is disputing having made the statement at all and distancing himself from the situation. What does this mean for the credibility of the evidence?
Now, if one looks at what the state witness, and this is now Absalom Zungu, the Zungu Senior, that's saying, but the statement that was given to the court or given to or in possession of the prosecution was never made by me. And this is a statement that was fabricated. That has a major impact on the narrative and the case that the state is trying to prove against the accused persons. So if now this witness is saying that I've never made this statement, and this is the circumstances under which I met Brigadier Geninda, who was brought there by my son, it places major question marks on all the evidence that the state has gathered against these 5 accused persons, to say that if they could have gone as far as fabricating a statement like this of this magnitude, what else could have been fabricated in actually building a case against the accused persons in court?
Right, so let me move to Nukwanzi. I apologize, I hope I'm not murdering your name on TV. Sincere apologies if I am, but you know, as a creator on social media and as a citizen following this case, and you know, it's been pending for so long, what are your observations about how it has been handled so far?
There have been so many delays, firstly, in this case. We do know that the case did start de novo, and the delays in the case are very worrisome for the people that are following the case. It makes us feel that justice for the Meyiwa family is being denied, basically. We are having the states changing their evidence, basically by saying that the confessions that were ruled to be admissible by Judge Rathamukwatleng are no longer confessions, and they want to change them to executive statements, which is something that we saw in the past couple of weeks, where the state wanted to cross-examine one of the accused on the statement of another. So all along we've been regarding these as confessions, and now they want to change them to executive statements. So as a member of the public, I feel that justice is being denied in this particular case.
So, Elton, is it legal to change statements into executive, what did you call it, Nkwazi?
Executive statements.
Awesome. So, Elton, is it legal to change statements to, confessions to executive statements?
When we deal with confessions, you look at section 219 and 217 of the Criminal Procedure Act. And when you ask the court to admit these statements, you do it under those sections. Now to come at a later stage to say now that confessions is actually executive statements, it's like then you're telling the court, but what you admitted to be allowed to be presented in this case is not actually what we said it was, it's something else. So you must let the court willingly. So that can never happen, it's unheard of. And hence the court made that ruling that it made, because the court's hands were tied. The court could not do anything else. As much as we could have seen that during the duration of the trial, the state has been trying these back-handed and backdoor tricks to sneak in evidence on various ways. And the court, in some instances, allowed them to do that. But for once, I was actually glad that the court said, you cannot do it, but I know why they couldn't do it, because there's no authority that allows that you say, this is a confession and now you want to make it an executive statement. An executive statement is something that is done with a person in an official capacity. And I don't think those statements was made in such a nature that they want to now say these were executive statements, because it's accused that made that confessions or alleged confessions. Let me not even call it confessions. I still hold it's alleged confessions.
So it seems that there's systemic institutional failure here, where the courts have their hands tied and these cases, or the case has carried on up until now. So I'm wondering, Elton, what you might have identified as an institutional failure here. Because if these cases, or if another case comes, this will be precedents. So what could be changed, what could be reformed so that these kinds of cases don't see themselves tarrying up until where we find this Meyiwa case currently?
No, for me, obviously, I think it is first and foremost that some of the head of courts, they need to come in and say, but this case has been taking too long. But also for me, the problem lies in, and this ties into what is currently happening in our country, that we have these two commissions that is actually looking at the behavior of sub-officers. Because in this case, you would know there was a docket 636 and a docket 375. And these two dockets had two different suspects already. So for me already within SEPS, it seems that the investigation teams are not in sync. There is two, I would call it factions within SEPS that wants to see different outcomes to this case. And I don't know what's happening there, but for me, it's somewhere there in the crime fighting unit where we need to actually investigate cases where there's a systemic failure. And I won't say this create precedents, because we do have full benches, we do have our Supreme Court of Appeal, we do have our Constitutional Court, and the High Court is bound by things that has happened there. And there were some things that they could not do it otherwise because we already have precedent for that. So I don't think it will set a precedent, but it will sort of make the people's confidence in the justice system fade away.
Namgokwazi, let me come to you. After all, your name does mean she who knows. And I'm wondering, since you know so much about this case and you've been following it for quite a while, there are different audiences here to consider. There is the digital audience, of whom you are very aware of, and then there's the traditional audience. There's also those who are following the case, well, on an experiential level. That means they're there. But what would you say, or how would you say that the digital influence, I beg your pardon, what do you think the digital influence has been when it comes to the Meyiwa case? Do you think that there has been some sort of outside jury or public jury that has influenced the case in any way that it has gone?
Well, the court of public opinion will always have opinion when it comes to this case. And it is a good thing that this case has been broadcast to the public to share their opinions on it. We do feel that there is a lot of inconsistencies that are happening in this case. And I've seen that a lot of people actually do agree and seeing a certain trend with the behavior even of the judge in this particular case. So we do have a certain opinion that we have with regards to how things are handled, and the public is not happy with what we see before the court.
So do you think that the public perception here is something to be considered even in court? I know that this is not how it goes. I know Elton will correct me there, but do you think that in some way, shape, or form, this is a greater perception than whatever is happening inside of the court? Because it's out there and it seems it's bigger, it's a bigger entity outside of the courts.
The public, although we don't really know the legal terms and the way that the legal fraternity works, we do see the evidence that is provided before the courts. We have been following the evidence, and from the evidence that has been brought in by the state, it is not convincing beyond reasonable doubts that the accused that are before the courts are responsible for the murder of Senzo Meyiwa.
Elton, do you want to take on that one now?
And for me, I hold it, and our burden of proof that rests on the state is beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's doubt, it should be given, that benefit should be given to the accused persons. And with what you are seeing, and also what's happening on other levels within the South African Police Service, I have no reason to believe that these are the 5 people that actually is responsible for the death of Senzo Meyiwa. They might have knowledge as to who was the culprits, but I don't think that they were the ones that's responsible for that. And the entire handling and how the state also behaved in actually presenting cases, not calling crucial witnesses, because I would say, when you look at the witnesses that they called at the beginning, they called Tumela Madlala and they called that other Mtokozizi Twala. Why not call Kelly Kumalo, who was the close associate and girlfriend of Senzo Meyiwa? Why not call the other people that was in the house to say, let's first test and see the versions of these people in the house. Does it even make sense? Does it even add up? And that, to me already, I smell there's a red, because it might seem that they are conflicting each other as to what really happened, and then it speaks to a cover-up. And then the 2 dockets that came up that says, in 636, they're saying this is the 5 accused. In 357, they're saying this should be the accused person. Then for me, looking at how the state was going about and how the state is building their case just purely on circumstantial evidence and evidence that is not completely without doubt, I feel like we will not see justice for the Meyiwa family, unfortunately, and the South African public will sort of think that justice is only for those who has money.
Right, so Elton, let's talk about the justice system now in South Africa, because this this situation has been going on for a while, when he died, and of course, allegedly there were 7 people in the house, and then, no investigation up until a few years after. How is this affecting, South Africans and, them thinking about, oh, if this happened to me, I'll never get justice because it's taking so long to get to the end of this situation? What's your take?
No, indeed. Remember now, this happened in 2014. We are already approaching 2026. So even if there was a witness that was available to testify for either the defense or the state, in 14 years, a witness can die, witnesses can disappear. Then it means that even if there was a good case against the accused, those witnesses are no longer available. That has a serious impact on the finalization of cases and actually holding people accountable for their alleged offenses that they've committed. So now looking at this, a person will easily say, but I won't report this because it might take another 13, 14 years for it to be resolved. But one needs to look at the justice system as different role players in the system. You have the South African Police Service, who's responsible for investigating matters. And once they have concluded their investigation, they hand the docket over to the prosecuting authority, then has to evaluate, looking at it, if there's a prima facie case that the accused has to answer to, and after the prima facie case, will we have evidence sufficient to say beyond reasonable doubt these accused that we have charged is indeed the right ones? And then you need to look at also, is there not meddling by prosecutors in the system? Was there not meddling by SAPS, the South African Police Service, in the investigation? And then you need to look at, and something which is currently before our parliament, also there was talks of judicial officers that could have been sort of a little bit laxy-daisy in how they go about things. Is this not maybe also that type of a case? So one needs to look at all these things and then say, overall, yes, you can say the justice system, but maybe it's a part of the justice system and not the entire system that is flawed, and hence you see these discrepancies coming up.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Elton Hart, for being here to give us that legal angle to things. And of course, thank you to Nokwazi, she who knows, Nombela, for also giving us the social angle to the entire dynamic. I hope I got that right, Nombela. Am I correct? Is that the meaning of the name?
Yes, you are correct.
Yes.
That's because we have a South African.
You didn't have to tell her my secret. Well, thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we've got more coming up inside our final segment here. And of course, we'll be taking a look at your health. Do stay with us. This is Breakfast Extra. My name is Messina Appeal, and of course, Queen Celestine. Once again, a good morning to you for a Saturday. It's Breakfast Extra, 14 November. We mark World Diabetes Day, a reminder that diabetes is no longer someone else's problem. Now, this year's theme, Diabetes Across Life Stages, highlights a critical truth. From childhood to adulthood and into old age, diabetes can affect anyone. In Nigeria, lifestyle changes, urbanization, rising obesity, Tinubunomics, and lack of preventative care are driving a surge in type 2 diabetes. Managing it isn't just about medication. It's about what you eat, how you move, how you live at every stage of your life.
Joining us is Dr. Temi Tokle, the lead dietitian at Torim Consult, who will guide us through lifestyle management strategies for diabetes prevention and care. Dr. T, for short. Good morning. Oh, thank you for being here with us.
Hi.
Zeno's excited.
Am I?
You are.
You seem more excited, and so I thought to myself, I'll let the two of you do most of the talking
sharing
today.
my excitement.
Well, I will take it then. Thank you very much. Dr. T, as she calls you. What do we need to know about type 2 diabetes? Diabetes generally, especially in the conditions we find ourselves living in Nigeria.
Okay, so diabetes. What is diabetes itself? Okay, what is diabetes? A lot of people do not know what diabetes is. People say diabetes and then they say sugar. Okay, but diabetes just simply means that the inability of your body to use what an hormone called insulin. Inability to use it, or inability to produce enough of it, or when there's a complete lack of insulin then you say someone has diabetes. It's not necessarily because you ate sugar. Because really, literally, everything that we eat is sugar. Carbohydrate. And the end product of
sugar.
Carbohydrate is glucose, which is sugar. Okay, so diabetes, right now we've realized that diabetes is not just a thing of the old people. It's not for, according to this year's team, it says lifestyle management across life stages. So now we're now seeing more influx of DM in children, in young adolescent, young adults, and even more incidents in older people. So it's important that it's now everybody's problem. So it's important that we have discussions around diabetes.
So now you've clarified, because honestly, when you say diabetes, everybody just look at you and say, sugar. So now that you said it's not sugar, how do people, manage their lifestyle to avoid this? Because now that you've mentioned it's now more rampant, it's no longer old people's disease or illnesses.
People as young as 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, it's now everybody. So it's either you don't have insulin at all, you're producing little, or you're producing too much, right?
Or inability to actually use what you produce.
So how can it be preventable, and how can we do that?
Okay. So they are more, as a clinical dietitian, our focus should be, so you can have 10 diabetic patients and their medical nutrition therapy can be 10. So it means that each person's management is different. So as a clinical dietitian, our major goals is to always provide medical nutrition therapy per patient based on what is wrong with the patient, based on the patient's current sugar levels, the FBS, the fasting blood glucose, the 2-hour postprandial, the HbA1c. These are different tests that, individuals do. The food preference, the 24 hours dietary recall, the food history, the cultural preferences. These are things that, you want to find out before saying, oh, you eat this, you don't eat this. But there are major things that cut across all of these 10 people, and that is, we know that you should eat whole grains, avoid processed foods or even ultra-processed foods that are overly processed. We know that we want you to eat carbohydrates within a restricted amount, be calculated by your dietitians. We want you to eat fruits and vegetables. In short, I tell patients that when you eat food, and then the sugar is, imagine you're on an express, and then of course you're just pressing your accelerator. The moment you see a bump ahead, what do? You step on your brake. And so vegetables are like the speed bumps. Like, it helps to actually slow down the rate at which the sugar flows within the bloodstream. So vegetables are a major part when talking about diabetes. We also advise that you have increased physical activity. A lot of us, when we eat, the next thing we want to do is what? Sleep.
Isn't that what it says on the menu? Here, Amala, next, sleep.
I'm telling you.
Okay, so a lot of us want to sleep. We don't want you to do that. Have steps that you take. Okay, take few steps. Don't just sit down there and then all the food. Some people eat breakfast on that chair, lunch on that chair. No, it shouldn't be that.
It's called living in Lagos.
Well, okay, so we want you to, have increased physical activity, minimum of like 6,000 steps
a day.
A day.
That's a lot.
Well, that's not it. That's just average of 6,000 steps, because if you're actually a very active person, some people do as much as 10,000, 12,000 steps a day. So average of 6,000 steps a day.
Dr. T, you said
dietitian.
Sorry, dietitian T.
Yes, please. Witty dietitian.
All right. So you said something very interesting regarding how diabetes works, for lack of a better word. You say it's either the inability to create or the inability to make use of. Is that the basis upon which the different nomenclature is given to the disease?
Okay.
Diabetes 1, 2, and so on.
Okay. So when the body cannot produce insulin at all, okay, that's the one we refer to as the type 1 diabetes.
When you can't, your pancreas don't work.
Okay. And it's usually common with childhood and some young adolescents.
Curable?
Well, no.
Okay.
No, it's not. But
genetic.
it's very manageable with the use of insulin. Okay. Then type 2, when we talk about type 2, we're talking about, there's a production of insulin, but it's not sufficient, it's not adequate, okay? And so we could manage either using, we manage using all three folds, lifestyle approach, dietary approach, the drug therapy approach, all inclusive, and that is the most predominant type of diabetes, the type 2 diabetes. I think this International Diabetic Federation, this is November, the statistics for the number of, the recent statistics is about 589 million people actually have diabetes. And even, as we said, there's an increase with children, there's a surge, about 1.8 million children and young adolescents actually have diabetes. So it's actually a major concern. And then you have the third type, which is gestational diabetes.
Gestational diabetes.
Yes, that occurs among pregnant women. It comes during pregnancy. And then you have, in quotes, the fourth one, where we talk about the pre-diabetic, okay, when we talk about impaired glucose tolerance, impaired fasting tolerance. So that is just showing that, you're not yet diabetic, but you're at the risk, you're at the bus stop of being diabetic. In short, recently I heard that there's a type 5, there's a type 5 diabetic, although it's still still on the study, more about genetic and environmental factors, and that's why lifestyle is extremely.
You keep harping on that.
Yes.
But then every Nigerian always thinks of diabetes as what you eat, what you ingest. We've said that, yes. However, will eating, and if you can tell us categorically, will eating too much sugar lead to diabetes?
Okay, so when we say sugar,
no, I mean literal sugar. I want the layman to understand this.
Yes,
so when we say literal sugar, if I eat too much literal sugar now, as
when
the
you say sugar,
fable,
in processed foods. And
not processed foods this time. I mean actual sugar.
Okay, so let's break it.
I know, but what if, Queen? Just what if?
So let's break it down. When we say sugar, okay, because everything that we eat, as I said, is sugar. Yeah. We have the complex sugars and then the simple sugars, which I believe that is what you're talking about.
Yes, because grandma does say, don't drink it, it's too sweet, you get diabetes.
Okay,
so that's what
the simple sugars from sugar cane.
Let's use the
sugar,
organic ones.
No. So sugar is made from what? Beets or sugar cane.
You're right.
Okay, so simple sugar. So for one that is already diabetic, there's something wrong with the pancreas. If you eat too much of simple sugars,
harmful.
Yes, that is extremely.
But if I'm healthy and I eat a lot of sugar,
why do you want to eat a lot of it?
Because it's my coping mechanism for the trauma that Lagos is putting me through. And it is. Because food is comfort, and most people eat only sweet stuff. It's comfort food for me. I mean, I do fast food and stuff.
Okay.
I know I shouldn't. I know.
Okay.
But I'm wondering, will that cause diabetes?
For you?
For me. And let's hope that I'm absolutely healthy.
Okay, so let's hope you're absolutely healthy, and then you keep engaging in this dangerous act of consuming. Yeah, you're
judging.
No.
I don't like when you're judging.
Dangerous act of consuming sugar excessively every action has its own what? Consequences. So there's a probability that, it's a risk, it's something that can predispose you. If you continually do this, okay, with including poor lifestyle, with no speed bumps.
You're learning.
With no speed bumps, you're still sitting in your chair, you're not moving as you should.
That's New Central's problem. They don't let us move about. We're working every day.
As you should. Okay, so even without a family history, okay, if you have a poor dietary lifestyle of consuming things like that, over time, you can, or an individual can be predisposed to diabetes.
Even if I did stop eating all that good sweet food, I would still be predisposed because I work with her and she's too sweet. That's so cheesy, I know. I just had to, it's very cheesy.
Don't worry, my type of sweetness don't give diabetes.
Oh, nice. Back on track. Let's talk about World Diabetes Day now. So I will definitely get diabetes if these are my habits and I continue to eat simple sugars.
Yes.
So our grandmothers aren't wrong then. They're not wrong, they are correct. If you eat too much of this, you will get diabetes.
Yeah. So even if it is not diabetes, if you eat too much of anything, you would get something from it.
Okay. Now, let's talk about managing diabetes.
Okay.
How expensive is it? Because the problem with Nigerians, and you'll agree with me, Queen,
expensive.
It's not that they don't want to go and check and know what's wrong with them. It's that when I go and I find out and I start spending. So how manageable is it for people who need to hear that hopeful, I'm hoping it's hopeful, message? You're not looking very hopeful. you're not encouraging this hope here.
As I said, I work in a facility and we see different casts of individuals every day. Okay? Hopeful. If the hopeful news or the good news that I have is that if you eat well, and one thing I tell my patient, it's small food, small sugar. Big food, big sugar.
Oh,
okay?
portion control.
So when we say small food, okay, it's helping you to manage the quantity of food that you eat. Okay, you don't have to sit down with that big bowl of rice. Okay, so that's good news there. Eat half or of that plate, 2 servings, it's okay for you.
Like the spoon they use in Owambe.
Yes, 2 servings, it's fine for you. Just ensure that you had the speed breakers, vegetables, to now make you feel fuller, okay? Yes, there's the mental health part of it of, okay, I have type 2 diabetes. How am I going to do it? I'm going to be on drugs for life or even insulin for life. Yes, are the drugs cheap? Not so cheap, okay? Because if you have to take something constantly, it means either you like it or not, you have to spend money, okay? But like where I work, there are health insurance schemes now that now help to give drugs. I think some diabetic drugs are
Doesn't diabetes fall under any underlying health, what's it called? You know how to put it in the fine print?
Metformin is, it's covered, where I work, it's covered on the health insurance scheme. Yes, DM, hypertension, yes, I know they're
now let's
covered.
talk children real quick in terms of, the statistics for children. I know growing up, they talked about, breastfeeding children so that, they're forming and all that. But these days, I don't think a lot of people really focus on that because you have all sort of formulas. I still take Cerelac. Don't judge me.
Baby food is okay.
I am.
So, baby girl.
How can mothers prevent their children? Because I know that some of them is not hereditary, So would it be the formula? Is there some level of advising or don't give them
what to take and what not to
take? How can they prevent it? Because now I know that baby food are pretty expensive, so people will just go for the cheaper ones and all. We're not so sure these days what's in the market, if they're FDA approved and all what. So what would be the advice to parents so that their children don't get, the risk of diabetes or any kind of illnesses?
Okay.
You're going to say breastfeed until she's 6. I knew it. I knew it. Go ahead and say it again.
Just last Monday. Oh, this is Saturday. This Monday, last Monday. And I was giving my regular health talk, and I told them, pregnant women, I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to beg you to do exclusive breastfeeding anymore because the prices of, infant formulas have skyrocketed.
Nigeria will tell you.
Yeah. To humble you.
Exactly, that's the word. But the truth is that over and over, of course, in Lagos, there's now there's about a over 50% increase, I think about 57% increase in the rate of exclusive breastfeeding. So
that's good.
We're doing our work in Lagos State. Okay, so one thing we say is this: if you eat well during pregnancy, you exclusively breastfeed your children, you use, you give food as natural as possible. Okay, to your kids, avoiding sugars, or you use there are sugar replacements, refined sugar replacement like dates as sweeteners instead of these things, and then you avoid things that actually contain excess sugars. Okay, just last week, instead of I don't want to mention, instead of a particular brand of drink, I told my children we were going to make what we call poro kababa drink. That's guinea corn stem. Okay? And then we made it our juice for school. And then we sweetened with honey. Yes, we used honey. And then it was sweet. And they took it to school. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is that there are actually healthy alternatives if we choose to look for it. Yes.
So now it's our job to look for it. If not, there was something she said last time. I'm trying to remember.
Now, don't worry, we'll come after the show when we don't need it.
Well, thank you.
These are very interesting alternatives that you have given, and also lifestyle choices that actually will show how.
So Mazino can follow.
I will try my best, but the truth is that for me, sugar is sugar. Alternatively, if you're asking me to use bee poop, I'm very averse.
So how often do you eat your vegetables? How often do you take salad?
Risky burger, sir.
That question's for me.
Fruits. Well, how often do you eat?
I do admit that I am naturally averse.
You see, another major problem is that when we say diet, the average Nigerian thinks that diet has to be expensive. No, it doesn't have to. You don't have to take kiwi. There's orange. Apoki will sell 100 naira orange to you.
But you do know that these natural unprocessed foods are becoming more expensive. I bought a pineapple the other day for 2,000 naira.
Okay.
Where?
I would have had good amala for 2,000 naira.
So we're not saying do not eat amala, but how much is a bottle of fizzy drink? I'm sure you would not finish the 2,000 naira pineapple.
Well, I saved it till the next day.
Do you understand? Even till the next day.
And this is because I'm trying to get over my aversion to fruit. I'm not naturally inclined to eat fruit. I'm wondering how I lasted this long, but the only fruit that I consider fruit are bananas.
You've lasted for God's grace.
Yes, it has been God's grace running through my veins. But yeah, so I'm trying to change the habit because I know I'm getting older and I need these alternate forms.
So I love what you just said. Change. You're making conscious effort. And I think one of what I would want Nigerians or everyone watching is to start making conscious effort to try to make their health better. Let's drink water. Let's exercise. Let's eat fruits and vegetables. And let's go for screening. Do not wait until something happens. You're not necessarily looking for anything any bad thing in quote to happen.
They say don't go looking for what you
No, you're not necessarily looking for.
I joke.
But you're not, because you're not necessarily looking for any bad thing to happen. But when you detect these things on time, especially the pre-diabetic stage, at pre-diabetic stage, with lifestyle modification and drug therapy, it's still reversible.
Oh.
But the problem is that a lot of people now, you're experiencing blood vision, excessive urination, excessive thirst, excessive hunger, and then you just take it like that. Go for a checkup, and then hopefully things get better from there.
Dietitian Fawayemi Temitope, I want to say thank you very much for ending our show on such a grand note and on personal levels where we know we have to take sample from what we are hearing here, not just for the viewers. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
And I do believe that this is how we round up the Saturday edition, unless the producers say we have an extra hour, which will never happen. It has. No, guys, I was joking. No, guys, I was joking. We're done. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. From 8 o'clock up until now, we still have another installment for tomorrow, the Sunday edition, and it will equally be as exciting. So join us then. Until then, from myself, Queen Celestine, and dietitian Fawayemi Temitope, we say goodbye.
Bye.